NFL players, no matter who they are, have expectations heading into each season. From Patrick Mahomes to the fourth string corner on the worst team in the NFL are expected to perform and produce to an extent. In today's video, we're going to discuss third-year players' expectations and project how they will finish the season statistically for the 2020 year. The 2018 draft class had a good amount of talent as it featured players like Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen, and more we're going to discuss. And I'm going to say now, I'm not discussing Quentin Nelson's expectations or projections for this year because he is already a two-time first-team All-Pro guard, and that's generally not what you guys watch my videos for. He, assuming healthy, will probably go 3 for 3 to start his career and be well on his way to an illustrious career. Also, Josh Rosen will not be featured in today's video despite being the 10th overall pick just 2 years ago. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. And we start today's video off with Lamar Jackson. Lamar in 2019, as we know, won the MVP and had 43 total touchdowns. He was absolutely electric and was the main reason why the Ravens went 14-2. He had over 1,200 yards rushing and finished 6th in the NFL in rushing yards, and it was a magical year for both him and Ravens fans. However, for as good as Lamar was, it will be, and I can't preach this enough, incredibly difficult for him to repeat what he did in 2019. He had 3 games with 5 passing touchdowns and another one with 4, and while I don't think he completely regresses and becomes an average quarterback, I don't think it's achievable for him every year to produce his 2019 season. We saw Patrick Mahomes regress after his MVP season, and while he did have an injury, his stats were going to regress regardless. His touchdown percentage went down, and what was good for Pat was his interception percentage did too. Lamar had an incredible 9% touchdown rate in 2019, and this is pretty self-explanatory what it means, but for those who don't know, it means 9% of the throws Lamar threw in 2019 resulted in a touchdown. That is an impossible rate to keep up over the course of time, and because of that, Lamar's efficiency will certainly decrease in 2020. For his 2020 stats, I think Lamar could very well throw for 3,500 yards, which would be an increase, but I think he will finish around 30 to 33 passing touchdowns. Rushing wise is tricky for a player like Lamar because there's no way the Ravens want their franchise player running the ball an extra 176 times like he did last year, but on the same side of the coin, Lamar is smart about running and generally doesn't take a lot of big shots from defenders. I think he will finish with around 900 to 1,000 rushing yards, but increase his rushing touchdowns between 8 and 10, as in 8 and 10 total by the way. He will still be an elite player in 2020, but his statistical peak very well could have been in 2019. Next is Bills quarterback Josh Allen, and this is a fun player to discuss for a few reasons. Allen, of course, is known for wild, sporadic plays that normally have coaches screaming at the start but smiling at the finish. And in 2019, he doubled his touchdown passes he threw from his rookie season as he went from 10 to 20 and improved everywhere statistically across the board. His completion percentage went up 6%, which is an astronomical jump in that category. He threw for 1,000 more yards, he threw for less interceptions on more passing attempts, and his passer rating went up by nearly 20 points. But for the sake of this video, the question is, what will Josh Allen's stats look like in 2020? His rushing numbers are also very good, as he has rushed for more touchdowns in the past 2 seasons than some running backs like Dalvin Cook and Nick Chubb, for example. Allen made a lot of steps between year 1 and year 2, and the Bills front office did him a huge favor by getting wide receiver Stefon Diggs this offseason from the Minnesota Vikings. Diggs is a 2-time 1,000-yard wide receiver and a great player in his own rights, and while Allen didn't have a bad receiving core last year, he didn't have a receiver of Diggs' caliber. I think Allen's numbers improve again, as there's absolutely zero reason to suggest they don't. He came into the league very raw and has developed very nicely over the first 2 years, and I'm projecting another increase in his numbers for year number 3. I think Allen ends up with 4,000 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, and adds another 507 touchdowns on the ground. He has become a good player over the first 2 years of his career, and he very well could earn a Pro Bowl appearance in 2020. Next is Saquon Barkley, who unfortunately had his 2019 season shortened due to injury. Saquon showed what he was capable of at a high level in 2018 as he had over 2,000 total yards, won the Rookie of the Year award, and had 7 100-yard rushing games. He very impressively caught 91 passes out of the backfield and looked to be the future of his position. I, along with everyone, think he can get back to that level of play, and his injury, and especially the way it happened, don't think it's a sign of things to come. Saquon has all the talent in the world and should get back to the player he was 2 years ago. This year though, he will have a solid quarterback play to help him get there, as Eli wasn't all that great 2 years ago, and Daniel Jones in 2020 can be better than Eli was in 2018. Having a good quarterback is huge for a running back, because as we know, if there's no threat of a passing game, then the defense can load the box with 8 or 9 men and completely neutralize Saquon. However, the defense at minimum has to account for Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, and Evan Ingram, and because of this, I think Saquon absolutely flourishes in 2020. I don't think it's out of the equation for Saquon to have another 2,000 total yard season, and for his sake, I really hope the Giants win more games this year than they have the last 2. Saquon had more wins in his final season at Penn State than he has through 2 NFL seasons combined, and that has to wear on him. So for 2020, I think Saquon is in the 2,000 total yard range and the 15 touchdown range, and will be well on his way to another Pro Bowl. And next is one of the more controversial players in the NFL, depending who you ask and what their opinion on them is, and it's Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. Baker had a very good 2018 as he set the rookie record for touchdown passes, led the Browns to 7 total wins, including their first win in nearly 2 years, and gave Browns fans something to cheer for. Not surprisingly, it was impossible for him to live up to the lofty expectations that were placed on him heading into 2019, as people were legitimately putting them in the AFC divisional round of the playoffs, the AFC Championship, and although I think most were for clicks to a site, the Super Bowl. The Browns went just 6-10, and Baker nearly threw for more interceptions than he did touchdowns in what can best be described as a sophomore slump. But what are the projections for Baker in 2020? I think with everyone writing the Browns off or saying they're the same old Browns are simply wrong, as Baker showed a lot of bad in 2019, don't get me wrong, but there was some good play too. We saw what type of player and leader he could be in 2018, and while I don't think the Browns are going to have 13 wins and beat the Ravens twice or anything crazy like that, I do 100% think Baker can rebound and become a good NFL quarterback. While the hype is down, the pressure is certainly up for Baker, because after this season, we will know whether or not the Browns have their guy, or if Baker can be added to a list that includes players like Johnny Manziel, Brady Quinn, and Tim Couch. But with another year of continuity with his teammates, Freddie Kitchens not being their head coach, and Kevin Stefanski providing good leadership from the head coaching position, I do think Baker rebounds in 2020 in a big way. My personal projections for Baker are similar to his rookie season, and I think he finishes this year with 27 to 29 touchdown passes, 10 to 12 interceptions, and a few rushing touchdowns as well. Obviously, time will tell with the weapons he has and the new coach he has, but 2020 will be the year we find out whether or not Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback. We finished today's video in the Big Apple to discuss the player on today's thumbnail, which of course is Sam Darnold. Sam missed some of last season, but still finished with a winning record as a starter and improved everywhere across the board. His completion percentage went up by over 4%, he threw at a higher touchdown percentage and at a less interception percentage, so for year 2 and at just 22 years old, he made good progress. One could also say with little to no weapons compared to other quarterbacks around the league as well. But for year 3, what should fans expect out of Darnold? We look at what he did in 2019 in 13 games, and taking an abysmal game against New England out, he would have had his completion percentage go up by more than 2%, and with that, he would have finished 2019 more accurate than players like Carson Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, and Jared Goff. By the way, even with this game where he finished just 11 for 32, Sam was in 2019 more accurate than Tom Brady. Anyway, the point is, Sam would have finished with a touchdown to interception ratio of 19-9 and a record of 7-5 as a starter, and for throwing to players like Jamison Crowder, Robbie Anderson, and Chris Herndon behind a not good offensive line to say the least, I think was a successful year 2. Now in year 3, the Jets have finally got some pieces for Darnold to work with in what I thought was a good draft by general manager Joe Douglas. The first was tackle Mekhi Becton, and while Becton could be a huge swing and miss player, they did get him a good receiving weapon in rookie Denzel Mims. With how young both players are, Darnold and Mims to be clear, they can grow together and be a good duo for the next 5 to 7 years, and maybe, if both stay healthy, because that is a big part of football, even longer. For Sam's stat projections in 2020, as much as I like him and think he can be a franchise quarterback, I don't think they're going to be all that good for a few reasons. They will be an improvement, but I don't think it's going to be out of this world. The Jets play 6 of 16 games against very good secondaries in the division, including the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore and the low interception leader of the Bills, Tre'Davious White. Now, getting over the hump by beating good teams would be a nice step for Darnold and the Jets, but I don't think that happens in 2020. For his stats this year, I think Sam will finish with around 4,000 yards, assuming he plays all 16 games, 24 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. He could add another score or two on the ground, but I think that's roughly what he finishes with in 2020. And that's all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed this video and like this series, let me know. And I know there's players I missed like DJ Moore and Courtland Sutton, for example. And if you guys ever want me to do a part 2 or a young player stat projection video featuring multiple draft classes, just let me know in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your day. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.